Hey, welcome everybody. This is Pat Lantry with Revisto. I'm happy to introduce everyone to Jack Moran. Jack is the Director of VDC and Integrated Service at Consigli Construction. We invited Jack to share the story behind the National Air and Space Museum Revitalization Project over the next 45 minutes. Sean Hester, who is on with me as well, our Strategic Implementation Manager for Construction at Revisto, and I are both very proud to be part of a truly extraordinary project, and one that really truly awesome work is being done in one of the most popular museums in the world and the home of our country's aeronautical history. Together, Jack, with the Smithsonian, Quinn Evans Architects, and the joint venture of Clark, Smoot, and Consigli, developed a process for collaboration in which Revisto is the focal point of communication. All projects benefit from collaboration, and Jack will be speaking to the results of the process they put in place, including the benefits of real-time collaboration between the owner, design and construction teams for constructability reviews and building system coordination, the creation of transparency and trust between team members by leveraging technology to report and track issues, as well as the advantages of working simultaneously in both 2D and 3D in a cloud-based environment. We'll save some time at the end for some question and answers. But before Jack begins, Sean will set the stage a little bit further with a description of Revisto. Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Pat. And thanks again, Jack, for joining us. As Pat said, truly unique project, once in a lifetime. And I think everyone here is going to just truly see what an amazing job you guys have done on that project from a collaboration standpoint. You know, what Revisto offers, as Pat said, is an integrated collaboration platform. It's one place where all team members can access a non-destructive environment for model viewing. We have 2D information that is available, both being exported directly to Revisto, as well as capturing that information from other CDE locations as well. So what Revisto does is it truly bridges the gap between design authoring tool, Navisworks, project management tools, and really offers this environment for the whole team to see all this information at their fingertips. Now, one of the great things about Revisto is the ease of use. And that goes for anyone on the project. The user interface is the same on your desktop as it is on your iPad. We directly cache information to your device. You don't have to be relying on Wi-Fi connectivity, which means that you can take this information into the field, something Jack's going to hit on with his team. And that is a very important piece of the puzzle, right? Coordination, design efforts, all that communication that go on during the life cycle of the project, we don't want all that to be siloed with the person who has the biggest computer on the project, right? We want to open this up so more people can see this information. More people can leverage that to make better informed decisions. And more people can also be a part of that decision-making process, right? We can get those additional perspectives. So again, at the end of the day, integrated collaboration platform helps to make this possible. So that's a little bit of a insight into what Revisto has to offer. And I will hand it back over to Pat here.
Great, thanks, Sean. So please go ahead and use the chat feed to begin to ask your questions if you'd like to put them in there. And then again, we'll save time at the end, the last 10 minutes to address any questions that you have. I'm going to stop sharing here, Jack, and then give you the ball to begin your presentation.
And actually, as we're doing that, guys, there's actually two spots. One, we do have a Q&A section in the webinar. So if you could go ahead and ask most of your questions there. I know some do trickle in the chat function, and that's fine too. But preferably, if you guys could keep it in the Q&A, that'll be fine. Pat and I will answer some of these questions as they come up. If they're Revisto related, anything project related, we'll save for Jack to answer at the end, and we can definitely work to have all your questions answered in our time here. So again, thanks for letting me jump in there, but go ahead, Jack. We'll let you go ahead and start off.
Great. And can you just confirm you're seeing my screen? I'm always nervous about the technology.
Yeah, everything looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good, Jack. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Technology guys should at least be able to do the basic computer functions. So, all right, good. Well, that's the hardest part, so the pressure's off. So thank you guys for that introduction. It really is an honor to be part of this project. It is a once-in-a-lifetime project. We're really proud of the work we're doing down there. I'm going to give a quick overview of the project just to set the table a little bit. I usually present with the Smithsonian and Quinn Evans. We have presented, the three of us, the owner, the design team, and the construction team, a number of times, which tells you a lot about the collaboration that we've created here with the project. We're all very proud of it. Let's see if we go. All right, so just real quick, I won't read this slide because I know we have a short time frame here, but again, Jack Moran, Director of VDC and Integrated Services from Consigli Construction. We're a CMGC based in Massachusetts, but with 9 offices from the Mid-Atlantic up to through New York and New England, and some work in the Caribbean. But this is where most of our work is done. So we're about a 115-year-old 4th generation family-led company. We're an employee-owned company, about 1,200 employees. Myself, my background is in architecture. I spent nearly 20 years in architecture, then slowly transitioned to design build, and then have been the last 9 years on the construction side. So I've seen the collaboration needs from both sides of the table, I guess. So again, a little bit the project background. So the Smithsonian, I'm sure a lot of you have visited the museum. It is the second most visited museum in the world behind the Louvre. It's opened in 1976 for the nation's bicentennial, and really has had minor work since. The mechanical systems date to the building's construction. The stone facade, it was a Tennessee pink marble, was the weather barrier and had been failing. With any building of this age, it's not compliant with current building codes, ADA, et cetera. Poor circulation, wear and tear due to 7 million visitors per year. It was designed for 2 million visitors a year, which it reached in its first 6 months after opening. That translates to about 20,000 visitors a day, which continues. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about some of our logistics challenges. And I think generally, if you visited the museum, it was generally tired looking. And that's from Smithsonian, not from me. So the project scope includes some exterior plaza work and landscaping, complete exterior envelope replacement. That's the stone facade, the glass curtain wall and skylights, and the roof. New MEP systems, general updating of interior finishes, some circulation improvements, built out of some floor areas and some of the currently open atrium areas to help improve circulation. Some structural modifications that are associated with that. Updated exhibits. And then probably the most visible improvement will be a new north vestibule on the exterior of the building. And that is all going to be completed over a 5.5-year construction schedule. Just real quick before I go off the vestibule. So the purpose of the vestibule, if you visited the museum, right now you have a hard time finding the front door. So a lot of people walk up into the building, right to the building, and ask where the front door of the museum is. But also you walk in that door and you're right in the gallery. There's a security screening. There's no environmental barrier. That's what this will provide to the building. Challenging logistics, certainly. It's a very sensitive location right on the mall, right in the heart of Washington, D.C. There's no laydown area. We're utilizing multiple tower cranes. Security, as you imagine, is a concern with the federal building, high-profile federal building. Like I said, the building is occupied, so we are working from west to east, zone by zone. At no point will more than half of the building be closed. So the building is still seeing up to 20,000 visitors per day. So it's a highly occupied building. And because of that, we have to maintain fire separation between the project and public areas. And also, the building was not designed to run by zones. So we are replacing the entire mechanical system, but we have to be careful and really plan that out, because the systems are all intertwined, and something in zone 8 is served by something in zone 1. So it's really kind of a lot of choreography to maintain the building systems and temporary systems. Sean talked about the treasures and the history. We are literally dealing with logistics like this: moving the spirit of St. Louis, the lunar lander, protecting place things like Soviet ICBMs, the Skylab, just priceless artifacts that we have to move through an active construction project. Again, I said, we mentioned we're working west to east. We're moving all these artifacts through an active construction zone. So that's certainly a challenge. But the challenges I want to talk about today are really the ones that we go to how we're managing the process. So of course, what are those challenges for coordination collaboration? Again, it's a very large, complex, vintage building with a long duration, with complicated phasing, a large team. We all wanted to have model-centric workflows. That was desired by the Smithsonian as well as us and the design team, all parties. But we had a team that had varying degrees of model experience. One of the executives on the project asked me to train him to be a BIM ninja because he wanted to fly around the models. And certainly didn't want to give somebody like that access to the live Revit models. So we needed a way to be able to do that. Interoperability, not only is it hard to say, but it's hard to pull off. Large team using multiple software platforms. So, that was obviously a challenge. And then the balancing the need to optimize efficient workflows with proper traditional processes and documentation. After all, this is a publicly funded project. So these are some of the partners. This is just the first tier. Consultants and subcontractors. This does not include second and third tier subs. So a large, number of players. There's 120 people just on the design side alone. Lots of people create lots of documents. This photo here is just a 65% submission of one copy of the 65% submission. So we're dealing with well over 3,000 drawings, 6,000 pages of specs, and lots and lots of paper. Smithsonian wanted to have, this is Smithsonian's first full-in, all-in BIM-centric project. So they had to establish some pretty detailed requirements outlined in a BIM execution plan that we worked with collaboratively. This was our first collaboration with Smithsonian and the design team. Smithsonian's requiring us to do existing conditions confirmation, and there's a process for how we document that. Obviously, a lot of these are sort of typical to most projects: site logistics and utilization planning, 4D phasing and sequence visualization planning, obviously building systems coordination. We're also required to continuously update the record model, construction model throughout construction. So as things are installed, the model is updated. And then finally, an asset management deliverable. And all these are required to be submitted quarterly. So this isn't chasing subs at the end of the job. This is, as we go, we're required to keep the models live and up to date. The asset management there's a number of assets that we're tracking, and obviously a number of attributes associated with those assets. There are 5 items that are being required to be tracked in the model. And so we get that information as equipment is installed, and the models are updated and submitted to Smithsonian on a regular basis. Just a real quick slide on interoperability. That was a challenge for the team. The Smithsonian has their requirements for what the deliverables need to be with. B, we as a construction team did not mandate what our subs were using for software, but we had to mandate what those deliverables would be in the end. So clearly that translation, and interoperability is a major challenge on the project. This is a quote I like to use, not necessarily to attribute it to the person, but this is a quote, famous quote about the space, launching, creating the space age. And it says, our two greatest problems are gravity and paperwork. We can lick gravity, but sometimes the paperwork is overwhelming. And I think that's sort of sums up what the challenge is here, right? The construction challenges are one thing, but documenting the process, the workflows, the data control, the document management can be overwhelming on a project like this. So we needed a tool that we thought could address these challenges. And Sean already told you what Revisto is, so I won't dwell on this slide, but those features and those tools that Sean talked about were what led us to think Revisto would be the right tool for us. It's cloud-based, the ability to utilize both the 2D and the documents as the 3D models to be able to overlay them, and the issue tracker, which you'll see is mission critical to this project. And we can talk about how we use tagging and priorities and statuses in this chat feature. But the point of it is really to make sure that all that data we're tracking from pre-construction all the way through summer of 2024, when this job will be completed, that there's that continuity of information, right? Somebody leaves the job, a whole amount of institutional knowledge of the project doesn't leave with them, okay? And obviously with the number of people that are working on the project, the amount of data that's flowing back and forth, a single source of truth is critical. So the good news is Smithsonian was already using Revisto before we even got involved. I think their journey was similar to ours. We adopted Revisto about 4.5 years ago, maybe, as a VR vehicle. We're a CM. There were sort of a developing number of tools for architects to use to go to VR, but there wasn't a lot of tools that helped CMs utilize VR for coordination, visualization, so forth. So we started using that tool. Similarly, the Smithsonian really liked having a very easy to use virtual reality and computer visualization tool. At the time, they were using a PDF software to do review of the documents. And it was really a pretty manual process for that. And I think they struggled a little bit with that process because all that stuff that they were marking up in drawings eventually had to be translated into a different program. And they were really using Revisto for the 3D visualization, both walking through it on the computer screen and, as I mentioned, through VR meetings with their own team as well as the end users. And I think the reason why we mentioned there was the document management was a challenge is because all of the documents, all the markups that were being created in the PDF software had to be then translated into iManage, which is how they track. I think there were well over 15,000 comments that had to be entered into this program. And when I talk a little bit more about the issue tracker, you can see how that platform can streamline that process. So this is how kind of most of the world would view the building. There's 20+ design models alone. Of course, those of us on the construction side see this. This is how we see the building. So we needed to develop a workflow that would, kind of make more efficient use of the models and the documents. And this workflow here is unique to this project, and I can talk about some changes we're making at Consigli. But it really was a BIM 360 glue, Navisworks, kind of coordination, clash detection workflow, and then tracking the issues in Revisto, visualizing them and tracking them. At Consigli, we've kind of moved away from glue, so our current workflow eliminates that glue management, and we're really now at Consigli for other projects outside the Air and Space Museum, as I said, is a joint venture. We've eliminated glue, so we're using Navisworks and Revisto alone, which has really been beneficial to us. So the collaboration started in pre-construction. This is just one of those meetings. You can see 48 people in the room, working through lots of paper on the table, drawings up on the screen. Pretty early on, we recognized that we needed a more efficient process. I pitched the Revisto to the team. We tested it out. I demoed it for the team. Everybody said, sounds good. Like I said, Smithsonian had some familiarity with it, as did Quinn Evans. So we got some buy-in early as a test. And we kind of worked through the clashes in pre-con, allowed us to hit the ground running once we get into construction. More importantly, what it did, Revisto, and you see we had donuts, those were key to establishing that, that kind of a social aspect to collaboration, which was key. So when I click on a couple slides later, I'll show you, not live, but a screenshot of one of the issues, and you can see the transparency and the collaboration that's enabled by Revisto, which really created kind of we'd like to call it a circle of trust. And the workflow, this is a kind of a workflow diagram, which is actually not as complicated as it kind of looks on the screen here. But what it illustrates is the fact that Smithsonian, Quinn Evans, the architects, and our team, CSC, that's Clark, Smoot, Consigli, we can all create issues in the models, in the drawings. There's designated gatekeepers that distribute issues to assignees. In pre-con, we looked for major and typical design issues that we tracked, right? So obviously in pre-con, we weren't, tracking things down to this, pipe insulation was just nudging into the steel, fireproofing. Those weren't the kinds of issues we were tracking unless they were major and typical. We were tracking more issues like, is it going to fit? Is this duct shaft sized correctly? And any unresolved issues carried in construction, right? So this is one of the keys of Revisto. This isn't some Excel spreadsheet, or we're trying to keep track of emails flying back and forth. The issue tracker really allows us to not lose track of those issues, even if they're not completely closed out at the time we're discussing. Again, this is a very long process. And then obviously we're tracking major issues during construction and coordination. So I showed that workflow with the Navisworks, Glue, Navisworks, Revisto platform. For us, on a job this size, we're not just hitting, we're not just updating our clash tests and just pushing everything out to Revisto. We're really, most of that sausage making that happens, this pipe moving a little bit and that duct shifting a little bit, all those issues we're working out as a team kind of just get worked out, right? The issues that we're tracking in Revisto are the major issues. Either we could not work it out, agreed to the solution internally, it required input from the design team or the owner, it possibly have a schedule impact or a design impact or a cost impact. Those are the things that we track in Revisto. We use status to track ball in court, and priority to set deadlines to help organize the design team. And let me just kind of push to, this is an example of some of the issues that were being tracked in design. And this is what the program looks like. So as you see, this is one issue that was created by the design team, identified by the VDC manager on the job. He notifies, the architect, the Smithsonian, are the gatekeepers, on their side. They're notified that this issue has been raised. And just so you know, I was asked by the Smithsonian to kind of blank out the names here. So these represent different parties. So what you'd see, if you could see the names, were the VDC manager identifying an issue, the architect, the engineer, Smithsonian, we're all now involved in that process, right? So what the process is, when we open an issue and it moves into the conversation, we're all working on it collaboratively, its status is changed to in progress, right? That's how we know that it's a live, active issue. We work collaboratively through this chat feature in the middle. What this is, you see this little screen down here, this little screenshot is actually from the engineer, Muller engineers, pushing up a potential solution saying, what if I route the duct? This is my idea on rerouting that duct. What do you think? And the team goes, well, this won't work because of this, or yes, this will work. And it goes back and forth, and everybody's communicating and discussing that issue. And eventually we work down to what is the solution. Now, if I went live in the software, which I've learned not to do in demos, not this software in particular, but just software generally, I don't do that in interviews and demos much anymore, but for fear of me screwing it up or something. But what you would see is a lot of issues that were created and solved in the same day, right? Outside the RFI process. How often does that happen, right? I just solve it, I identify an issue, I submit an RFI, the architect has 10 days to resolve it, to return an answer. Maybe that's the right answer, maybe we need to discuss it more. Imagine that multiplied over a 750,000 square foot building, 6 years of construction. That's a lot of RFIs and a lot of time taken. We are working collaboratively, solving these issues in almost a social kind of context here. And then we're bundling up these resolved issues. Once we all agree on the answer, Smithsonian in this case is the party responsible for saying, yep, we all agree, and marking that issue as solved, right? And then the final step is to close the issue, which happens after we get a formal RFI response or an updated set of documents. So we're resolving these many issues every day collaboratively with the design team, with Smithsonian, and then bundling them up as confirming RFIs. So we might send the confirming RFI that closes Revisto issue 99, 67, 84, and 91 today, right? So we still need to submit RFIs. We still need to follow that formal process, but we also need to kind of work more efficiently than that process allows. And Revisto has really allowed us to do that. This chat log, this transparency has really enhanced that circle of trust. I think we all feel comfortable now that we're kind of putting our cards on the table. You'll see conversation going between the architect and the engineers before they respond to us. It's really been a fantastic workflow. You know, you'll see down at the bottom here, tags. I didn't mention tags on this project. So this is a joint venture where the software they use for project management is Kahua. If this was a Consigli standalone project, you know, we'd be using with Procore and integration, and you'd be able to kind of see if something was elevated to RFI status. In this case, they're using tags to associate with an RFI or a PCN or some other document. And that's important because we can search and filter these issues. So if I want to see, show me all the documentation associated with RFI, you know, 321, it would sort of bring up all this chat, any attachments. I forgot to mention, you can attach backup documents, you can attach photos. This is a renovation. We could go out in the field with an iPad, attach a photo directly inside Revisto and add that to the conversation. At Consigli, we tag issues by CSI divisions, so we can easily say, and this is because we have the ability to elevate and integrate with Procore, we can designate those tags to track by division. So we could say, show me all the Division 23 issues that we're dealing with, right? Show me all, and I can filter by all of these categories here. So show me all the critical fire protection issues that are due before, you know, within the next 30 days. So there's all kinds of ways to sort and filter, and that's really important when you're dealing with a number of issues on a project like this. Not only do we have the ability to sort and filter, but we also have the ability to create reports. So in this case, you know, we've got reports by status, by priority, so we can sort of show me how many issues are, you know, in progress versus solved versus, you know, closed, how many are critical versus minor versus major, how many are assigned to each person, etc. Any kind of filter you want, any kind of way sorting you want. And we also have reports that generate weekly basis, both in Excel and PDF form, which you see on the screen here. Every week on Thursday, automatically, Visto will export report of all open issues and all critical, I shouldn't say all open issues, all issues not closed. So that can be open in progress issues and all critical issues. And those are automatically set up in Revisto. They automatically generate that report, send it out to a distribution list that we set up. And those reports go out Thursday at noon and become the almost the agenda for our Monday meetings and how we organize our workflow. I mentioned the priority deadline thing, and I glossed over it, but I want to go back and point out that on a project like this, we're uncovering issues today that need to be resolved today. We're also uncovering issues today that don't really need to be solved for, a couple years, right? They're middle of phase 2. But we don't want to lose track. We don't want to kind of write a Post-it note and put it somewhere and lose it. So we enter those issues and we give it a deadline and we prioritize it so that the design team knows, all right, I need to work on these issues that are due now. I can put off those other issues until when they're needed, and it helps them kind of prioritize their response to us. And then finally, it doesn't just stop within the coordination team, right, or the pre-con team. We're using this in the field, right? All this information we're generating, the models, the documents are all out in the field, both by use of an iPad. Revisto works equally as well, at least equally as well on an iPad. All the features are there. We've got job boxes set out in the field with access to the models. So our team, subcontractors, they're using these out in the field. They're using them just to make sure that all the up-to-date information is correct. The status of the issues we're dealing with are correct. We're using it to QC installation on an ongoing basis. We can bring those models, those drawings right out in the field. We can hold them up to the installation and compare. And frankly, we're still tracking new issues that we're finding in the field, whether it's because there's been a design change and that change, we weren't able to anticipate all the dominoes, or whether there's a field condition that we didn't recognize because we've uncovered it after demolition. You see there, Jason, the VDC manager, he's out in the field. He could take a snapshot and embed that right in that issue in the field. So again, it's not just an issue, a tool that we're using in the trailer, in coordination meetings with the computer people. This is really a valuable tool for the field. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is the ability to bring in laser scanning. So we're still scanning. There were scans done the building prior to demolition. There have been scans done post-demolition. And that data is equally valuable to the models, and bringing them in, overlaying them, be able to see the accuracy of the models to the real conditions. Do we need to quickly make adjustments because that beam was, in reality, once we opened the ceiling, that beam was not in the place we thought it was. So the reality capture tools and the integration of Revisto has also been really valuable to us as well. So again, I probably went pretty quickly there, but there's a lot of stuff to be proud of on this project. The thing that I think is most proud of is just the workflows that were developed as a team in a collaborative basis. The transparency, and I keep going back to it, the circle of trust has really been on what is a publicly funded job, really refreshing. As an architect, I kind of grew up on publicly funded work. Back in the days when if you didn't draw every nail and screw, you didn't own every nail and screw in the building. And it's been really refreshing to work in this kind of project, this scale, in such a collaborative process. And I'm not sure that would have been possible without a tool like Revisto. So with that, I'll stop and ask any questions.
Yeah, I have a couple questions right off the bat here, Jack. Actually, you showed a lot about the collaborative nature and all the different people who are part of your project. Now, besides the donuts, and I know food goes a long way to get people at meetings. Trust me, I use that many times when I was working for a GC as well. The customer utilizing Revisto obviously helps quite a bit to help get people up to speed and just really get buy-in. But were there things that you guys talked over as a team to help get the design team kind of over to this collaborative environment, or were they willing to go right out of the gate?
So I think we were lucky in that we started, I think, so Quinn Evans has shown to be kind of a forward-looking firm to start with. So that was great. They were looking for a better way. I think we all felt like there had to be a better way to build projects, especially a project like this. We had the benefit of them being somewhat familiar with the software and starting early on in pre-con, right? So there wasn't the same kind of risk of starting this off in a project that was well under construction, they were kind of worried about opening their mouth and creating dollars for the owner or something like that. So we did deploy it in a safe environment, which I think made them be a little more open-minded to it. And we were able to establish those workflows as well during pre-con. So the process that we use today wasn't what we started on day one. And we were open to Quinn Evans. We had meetings where we kind of worked through the workflows. How do we think this will, what's the best way to do this process with them? And they were part of that discussion. And I think that helped a lot as well. It wasn't something we were kind of forcing on them to fit into our software program. Mm-hmm. And so again, I can't emphasize enough. Now I think, the next project where we started in construction, I think we'd kind of have the story to tell, right? So there would be less maybe hesitation, but being able to start in pre-con where everybody was kind of in a safer, we probably in the shallow end of the pool at that point, made them a little comfortable to try something new.
Oh, that's great. Love to hear that. And then I have one more question before we got someone in the audience who's actually asking a question, but I did want to ask something before that. I love the mention of the BIM Ninja, and that just shows you an enthusiasm in the field, wanting to use this extremely relevant and important information for their work, right? So how did you guys train the field? How did you roll out Revisto to the construction team? And maybe just give us a couple of things that helped with that effort. And similarly, how did you get them to come on board and say, yeah, this is going to work?
Yeah. So I think, a lot of times technology adoption is more of a cultural issue than a technology issue. And I think we're lucky in that we had some, field staff that were willing to take a chance. We also had a full-time on-site VDC manager who could be there to, not hold their hand necessarily, but hold their iPad for them, to really walk them through it, to show them the power. In this case, we had a superintendent that was already, comfortable with technology, and he wasn't the general super for the project, but he was a lead superintendent, and so he led by example. Having a couple savvy people on the job, they kind of, we trained the trainers in that way. So it was a series of lessons learned. And I don't, the beauty of the software is that it's so intuitive, so user friendly, that I wish I could tell you some great training program that we set up and we, over the course of 7 weeks, it really wasn't that easy. It was like, okay, let's download the app on your iPad. This is how you access the model. Our team, some of those members of the team were involved in the pre-con process. So they saw it being used at that point. They saw the amount of data that was in there that was going to be critical to them. And let's face it, it's annoying for them to have to go to the people that were involved in that process and say, can you tell me what the resolution of that issue was, right? They like being able to find that information themselves. And this is just, once they saw how easy it was to be self-sufficient, it really didn't require a lot of prodding.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I mean, that just great to hear, right? It's not necessarily a training program or software. It's more just that hands-on initially, right? And like you said, Revisto is easy to use. Once you get a little bit of that hands-on instruction on where to go, what to do. There's not a whole lot of buttons, right? So people get comfortable pretty quickly and easily as they're walking around. Now, again, we do. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna say. So obviously, the more people that use it, the better, right? If everybody in the project is using it, that's the maximum benefit. The good news is that for the people that are absolutely critical to use it, well, this might be the most simple to use program that they'll use in their day, right? It's not like having to learn Navisworks and Revit and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we do have 2 questions from the crowd. First one is from Anthony, and he's asking, if you don't track coordination issues in Revisto, how do you track the clashes for MEP trades that don't need the design team's input?
Okay, so it's not just the design team's input, but and so we are tracking a number of clashes, right? We're running the clash tests, reviewing clash tests in meetings. But when I said we're not tracking them, I'm saying we have a meeting. We see the resolution. A lot of times they're live meetings, right? They're working meetings. They're kind of co-located meetings, virtually mostly, especially now, obviously. So we're resolving a lot of those clashes in the meeting. If there's something that, it's not just the design team's issues that get tracked. It's any issue that we didn't find the easy solution in that meeting. That wasn't just a matter of, I'm going to move here and you're going to move there. I guess what I was saying is we're tracking the issues, but we're not just exporting clash tests to Revisto, right? We don't need to push 300 clashes into the program and track them, because a lot of those issues are just going to be solved through the sausage making.
Yeah, and the other thing I remember working with Jason, and you've mentioned him a couple of times. Jason's done a fantastic job on this project. I mean, for one person to manage all this is an undertaking in and of itself, right? And what I remember in the beginning is, while design was continuing to roll and move, Jason was actually working with 2 Revisto projects, right? There was the design Revisto project that was ever changing. Design was continuing to evolve. Questions were being asked and answered from a, should this be an RFI, should this not be an RFI process? But he was also cruising along with the construction coordination model as well, where the construction team was really going through and answering a lot of their issues as it relates to coordination, not necessarily stuff that needs to be sent to the design team. When it did need to be sent to the design team, that's how it got escalated.
Right.
One more question. This one's from Steve. With I'm guessing because you hit on Smithsonian also being a Revisto customer, and as well as you guys, he's asking which party manages and paid for the Revisto licenses on the project.
So in this case, the joint, it's a little complicated because we're a joint venture and the joint venture owns a certain number of licenses. Consigli Construction is one of the joint venture partners, has an enterprise level account, right? So we have unlimited users. So it's kind of a combination. So we maxed out our joint venture licenses, but Smithsonian owned their license. Each person, if they have their own license, don't contribute to the project's pool, right? Sean, you could probably answer this better than I can.
Yeah. No,
get myself twisted in. So it's a combination. Yeah. So, we have an allotment that the project bought, 20 licenses, right? We ran out of 20 pretty quickly on a job this size. So every Consigli member of the project is utilizing Consigli licenses, not the Clark Smoot Consigli license. Smithsonian people, Quinn Evans people are pulling from their pool of licenses. And then, the joint venture licenses are really designated for those people that don't have their own.
Perfect. And I think, what's worth noting here, everyone, is just the ability to do that, right? We have a lot of different scenarios across customers and projects. Other Consigli projects where the customer doesn't have a set of licenses, Jack and his team provide those licenses to the customer, to the trade partners, to the design partners, to be a part of that collaborative environment. This project, had a little bit of a different scenario where multiple entities have licenses, and that works as well, because what happens is they just, Those licenses are per user. They can be invited to the project itself, and then they're collaborating on that project. Now, if they are paying customers already, they just come on as a guest, so they're not taking away from those paid licenses from Consigli and their overall pool of licenses. So we can be very flexible there. And you know, the other thing worth noting is that when people are leaving the project, those licenses can be pulled back and they can be given to someone else who might be coming in. You know, scopes change, people finish the work, team members come and go, they're working on other projects. It's very flexible per user for those licenses.
Yeah, I'd say that one of the reasons why Consigli, so to take it away from, step back from the aerospace project, we at Consigli, we have 70 plus active projects that are either in pre-con or construction or some other way. That doesn't include the, you know, dozens and dozens of projects that are just like visualization things that we kind of spin up kind of off on the side. And so with that number of projects, we believe so much in the collaboration. We went to an enterprise agreement because we did not want licensing to be a barrier to the transparency, the ability to collaborate in this way.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack, for sharing your story. I think it's really important to highlight the people, and I was glad that the Jason Crummins was referenced a couple of times during this. So it's not only the technology in which Revisto in this case is the center of, and the process in which the project team established, but it's really the people that make it run. And it was really great, Jack, that you got the spotlight shown on you as really a Revisto champion today. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your time today.
Sure, and just real quick, I want to make sure that the Smithsonian and Quinn Evans get the recognition as well, because it's really maybe the stars aligned, no pun intended, for the Air and Space Museum a little bit here, but you know, we were all looking for a better way to do a project, and so we all went in with an open mind. So, and it started with the Smithsonian.
Truly a collaborative driven project, Jack. Thank you very much. Well, thank you everyone for your time. We'll be closing the session. Please go to our website, revisto.com, for upcoming events. And thank you again.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.